Right. Good evening, one and all. We are doing another edition of the P10 show where I am very excited to be sat with A, good friend, B, client, if you say client, and C, Commonwealth athlete, Holly Knowles. Now, Holly, if I'm just going to put it out there from the beginning to say that if when we met, um, however long ago, all those years ago, if
What, five
I,
years ago?
yeah, 5, 6 years ago, I would have eaten my foot. If you told me then that would have become a Commonwealth athlete, then I would have not put any money on it whatsoever. Um, and I mean that in the most utmost respect in the world.
I'd
Um,
probably,
and I can say that because I'm one of Holly's biggest fans. But in tonight, it kind of brings around kind of a lot of points of kind of talking through a discussion, in the sense of it is the where she is because of basically strong work ethic, and she's got a fantastic mindset, and we'll definitely talk around these things including training environment. I'd love to obviously just explore the experience of the Commonwealth year, and what that kind of entailed, as well as the experience of the games, because we'll never get to kind of experience that. Well, I certainly will. And then as well as that, when I first met Holly, Holly was about 57 kilos, is that right?
yeah.
And then I think there's a very, very interesting to this point of discussion, or just kind of shared experience to be had, as she's gone through this kind of transformation of kind of, for a variety of different reasons, putting on weight, and the kind of the whole, and it's such, particularly someone like myself working in the nutrition sphere, um, the concept of putting on weight, um, brings around a lot of problems, even if it is certainly for, like, Holly's seen increase in performance, and most notably her health as a result. Um, and even with these kind of more positive repercussions, there's certainly obviously difficulties and struggles that come with that. So thank you for coming to speak to me this evening. How's isolation living?
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a fan, no.
Not a fan. I
Going for
mean, I'm quite a tired person anyway, as you fully well know, but I'm not one for like just being sat down.
getting antsy. And then, you are you training? Are you lifting weights? Are you body weight training? How's your training looking?
Very, very, very lucky that Leah has lent me the basement. Although I cannot do anything overhead with the 10 kilo plates on, I can still strict press. What is it, like fives and all the fractionals? I don't know what that adds up to, but that's the max that I can strict press at the minute.
But you've still got exposure to some form of bar. And then what was the kind of the plan? And obviously after the whole coronavirus, what was the, obviously all the, for those that don't know, as with any sporting event, the kind of the Olympic weightlifting calendar has been cancelled. What was the kind of the plan, and what have you basically missed out on, as a result?
What did we have? We had the British seniors in June, didn't we?
Yeah.
Was
So
followed up.
that would have been the next.
Yeah, that would have been the next one. But other than that, I had nothing in between. Oh no, I did actually. I was going to go to a friendly comp in Danham CrossFit up in Yorkshire somewhere.
Yeah.
But that was only going to be a friendly thing. But
Just some experience before the British.
Just the seniors.
Amazing. And do you want to, so let's just talk through the notion of the beginning, in terms of, why, because obviously you were initially a sprinter. Why did you initially come down to the gym, and how did that then transfer you across into weightlifting?
Big old story. So my boyfriend at the time joined NW1, And the winter conditioning actually was in Fastways Fitness, which was another gym. So that was the first time I'd ever stepped foot in a gym to do anything with weights, let alone body weight. I'd just been on the track. They invited me to do the winter conditioning, so I went over to that gym, and I think it was like 3 months block, should we say? I don't know what other terminology anybody ever uses anymore, but block. And then when that sort of finished, that was when Lewis was joining NW1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So then I joined, started doing CrossFit, was absolutely awful at it, if you would agree, Carl.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then it all sort of went from there, didn't it? I like Olivia. I don't remember how Olivia got into it. Olivia was my best friend, by the way. But she started doing it, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah. And then I had work experience, didn't I? I did my work experience, and then that's when you and Nate taught me.
Yeah.
Tried to teach me with plastic pipe over and over again.
Yeah, so Holly did work experience with myself back in, however, about 6 years ago, when I was in school, and we spent part of the week basically teaching her how to Olympic lift, and that was the beginning. Do you remember at what point it was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of engage in some form of competition?
I'm quite an obsessive person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
I like to probably over focus on things. A little bit of a control freak. So I just remember finishing the work experience. Olivia was doing it and she was entering some competitions, and part of me was a bit like, yeah, I want to try that. So that's when I started YouTubing how to do it, and I think I even got a program off Catalyst Athletics. Is that it? Because I'm sure Lewis was using it at the time. And then it was Lloyd, actually, my boyfriend now, that was like, right, NW1 are doing a friendly competition, you're doing it. And I was the shyest person, most self-conscious person ever, that I was like, oh, I can't do it. And he basically bullied me into it, and then that's where it all kicked off, really.
I think there is a lot to be said for that. Particularly, you are within weightlifting as a whole. You're so exposed. You're so exposed in the sense that, obviously, if you've not seen a weightlifting competition before, you are literally, you're invited onto the platform. It is, you take your lift. There's no music. You have the whole crowd looking at you, type thing. And whether it is in a gym, or whether it is, like I say, the British Championships are at I don't know what it's called in you. It's the Echo Arena. It's the Echo Arena. But this year it's in Liverpool.
I think it's like M&S Bank or something.
Yeah, they've changed it, haven't they? But whether it's in the gym or whether it's a huge arena, it's still kind of quite a daunting prospect. And then, as well as that, if you're not particularly comfortable with the idea of failing, which most beginners, quote, aren't, it's a massive, massive deal. And so particularly with like pushing kids through the system and things like that, it certainly helps their just kind of overall development, for sure. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting is the kind of the speed in which you kind of pick the sport up. I would be interested to kind of get your take on time, because you were British university champion eventually, and then we got you into a Welsh Open. I can still remember that one quite quickly, which you did actually really, really well in, and you qualified for a British competition in your first one, was it? But then what do you think what do you attribute a kind of a fairly steep rise of progression to, from going from first time with pipe through to kind of quite serious competitive weightlifter?
Do you know what? I don't honestly know. I know that around that time, around there somewhere, my uncle died.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going into school. I just couldn't even bring myself to go to school.
Yeah.
So the only place that I was going to was the gym.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it might have been that around that time that was all I was focusing on, or it might have been that I was a newbie and it's all like neuromuscular, isn't it? And it might have just been that, or it might have been that I was slowly gaining muscle mass and increasing my body weight. But I mean, the first year I was still under 58 kilos, wasn't I?
Yeah. That kind of notion of body weight. Do you remember the process of kind of, was it a conscious decision in the beginning to put body weight on, or is it something that naturally happened with growth?
Yeah.
And then at what point, and then obviously that did become a point then where it did, where it was like, right, we need to consciously gain weight.
I remember being in the under 58 category I've been in every category for about a year. I worked it out. So I was under 58 for about a year. And then I remember, I don't know whether it was a senior or an open, and I'd actually had to cut for a weight, to make weight category. And I remember that being I don't know, it was in my mind, I remember it being an awful competition. I don't know why. I think I might have made like 2 lifts out of 6 or something. And I think that's when we discussed, right, maybe we need to go up to 63 now. Because I was towering over everyone, wasn't I?
Yeah, just for kind of a point of reference for everyone. Holly, I mean, I'm not the tallest of guys, but she's not far off my height.
I'm 5'8", 5'9".
5'9", yeah. So, and obviously as a 58 kilo female, usually 58 kilo females are a lot shorter. In terms of how did that make you feel, in a sense of that after, because I actually remember that initial discussion, right, let's go up a category. Was there any apprehension, or was it kind of?
I don't think so. I don't think at that point, because I was so skinny, like I just look back at pictures and videos now and I'm like, oh my God, I look like I was about to snap. But no, I don't think there was any like, oh, I've got to gain weight. I think it was more like, how am I going to do this? Because at that time I thought I was eating quite a lot of food, which I was or I wasn't, I don't know, because I didn't know much about it then. But no, I don't remember there being any like, oh my God.
No, I don't either. But then I knew, well, obviously we had conversations later down the line, but then as well as that, obviously when you were younger and lighter, there was issues with things like wasn't there some issues with your health in that sense?
Yeah, so I've got bronchiectasis, I still got it, but it'd only been diagnosed maybe like 3-4 years prior to me being in the gym. So there was a lot of like factors, whether now my health, touch wood, is fine. Like I've still got it, yeah. But God, I don't get ill nowhere near as much as I used to.
Do you want to just apply it for those that don't know what it is? Do you want to just apply it?
So it's basically, the way I can describe it is that the inside of my lungs are scarred from so many viruses, and the doctors basically said that I had asthma and I didn't have asthma, and they'd put it down to a virus or whatnot, and then it all just built up and then my lungs got damaged basically. So when I was younger, I probably had about, I think, I can't remember the exact percentage, but the percentage of my lungs that I could actually use was like nothing. So I'd catch tonsillitis, I had my tonsils out because it'd go straight to my chest. Like in primary school, for every 2 weeks I was in, I'd be off for 2 weeks. So I missed quite a lot of primary school. I've had pneumonia 4 times, pseudomonas once. So it's all like, I'm very anxious now about this coronavirus thing.
Yes.
But it seems very coincidental that when I started weightlifting, my health improved. Now, I don't know if that's linked or if I've made that up in my head, or whether it was because I was growing and my lung capacity obviously grew with my body growing, or what, I don't know. But putting on weight and weightlifting, I definitely think that contributed to my health being better.
Yeah, and I would definitely, obviously having witnessed that, I would definitely kind of vouch for that. So there was a period where you got to 63 kilos, you were there. Training was very much going well.
Cool.
You still got me?
Yeah, Evan just came up.
Hey, Colin. Hey, Evan. Yeah, so within that, I'd love to kind of just pick your brain around the time around when the year before kind of the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
What you like, the mindset was, what your training environment was like, and then as well as that, because obviously as well as the selection for the games as well was a bit of a surprise as well. Was it not?
I was in uni, wasn't I? Was I in my second year? My first year? My second
year.
Second year, I remember that we sat down and we were like, right, these are the competitions that we're going to do, and this is the goal. We want to go to the Commonwealth. But I remember Amy Salt being right slap bang in my way.
Yeah. There was another athlete that I coached at the time.
Which is really awkward.
Yeah.
So we both tried to do absolutely everything to make that year, to qualify, get all the qualification totals in, get all the qualifying comps in, everything, absolutely everything. And she pipped me to it, didn't she? I can't remember.
Well, what's not. Excuse me.
But because I was in uni, I remember that I was able to just train, like I'd hold my hands up if my lectures overlapped with my training, I would skip my lecture to go and train. So yeah, it's.
What did your training look like? Like how many times a week were you training, and what did it generally involve?
5 to 6 times a week. Some of them were double days as well, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Just because we were able to.
Yeah, squat. I remember putting you on a cycle where you were squatting twice a day.
Yeah, I remember 5 5s in the morning, and then I go back in, and they'd be like, "You squatted again?" I'd be like, "Yeah."
5 5s every morning.
Well, strong though. I was so strong after that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things, in the sense of your legs can take an absolute battering. Yeah. So particularly in the lead up to that
135, didn't I? Or at like 63.
Yeah.
Body weight.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And so what we did was we had Holly would front back squat 5 by 5 every single morning, pretty much, as well as some accessory stuff. And then in the evening, or in her afternoon session, she would do her kind of more structured cycle, and it paid off. Now the kind of the key thing is, it wasn't an easy time, because obviously you have the stress of trying to make of having this thing on the horizon, or the qualification period coming to a close, but then obviously to balance kind of university in that sense. What's the kind
of like food as well? So I wasn't living at home anymore, so it wasn't a case of I'd finish in the gym and mum had made me dinner. It was, I'm on my own, I cook what I want, I prep everything. So that was another factor for it. I was able to eat what I knew, or we knew that I needed to do to fuel the training.
Yeah.
that volume of training anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the what was the kind of what were the kind of the problems apart from eating? Any problems during that time? And I kind of want to delve into the fact that you're basically a classic deadlifter.
Unless it's changed.
Yeah, well, it has. Let's
Yeah, I still don't know why
So,
that.
for context, Holly is someone that has a habit of basically approaching the bar, overthinking the lift, and then just basically pulling the bar as opposed to committing to get under.
Nice pulls though.
Yeah, great pulls. And it was something that would really bug, well, the whole, like, she wasn't the only one in the club.
Coming from me now coaching, I could understand your frustration when I would do it.
Exactly. And do you want to say what the repercussions were for pulls? Or what?
It was like 50 deadlifts for every 50 deadlifts, 50 burpees for every lift I'd miss.
Yeah, basically. And did you ever do it at a competition?
Yeah.
And did you ever do burpees at a competition?
I can't remember.
But so in terms of one of the things that kind of I'm quite interested for the guys to hear is what is the strategy that you now use to kind of overcome this, because one of the key things within weightlifting is making sure that the first lift or your empty bar lifts or your 30-40% lifts are the same kind of routine as your maximal attempts. And do you want to tell them about the thinking space and the routine?
So one of the things that I do is Cal taught me to sing a song, which still goes through my head when I approach like any snatches. Not so much clean jerks because very rarely will I miss a clean. But my snatches, I will sing a song, and on the same word, I've just got to commit to it. Doesn't always go to plan, but
it made a hell of a difference.
Yeah, it did make a difference.
You want to tell them what song it is?
No.
I will. It's "Don't Look Back in Anger" by Oasis. And so one of the things that we did is we established that Holly knew the lyrics to these songs, and in terms of trying to formulate this routine, we have this the thinking space and then the no thinking space. Now the back of the platform is the thinking space. The thinking space starts when when she approaches it, and then it's like, well, what are the cues? And stay over the bar, finish the extension, you name it. It'll be one or two cues. As soon as she steps forward, that's when slip inside the eye of your mind kind of starts. Am I right? And then she'll go through the whole lyrics, and then am I right in saying that it's the "so Sally can wait"? And as she gets to the weight, she's reached the full extension of the bar. And that's the kind of the main thing, is that this process of kind of lifting the bar through particularly an explosive movement like a snatch or a clean, it cannot be there has to be some autonomy to it. Yes, it requires thinking, but at the same time, we have to have this systematic approach where 100 and whatever kilos is the same as 40 kilos. And just getting into the routine is kind of one of those kind of major habits that I would definitely start to promote, particularly within our kind of heavy lifts, because overthinking it is just can be so problematic, and I'm the king of that as well. Hence,
I tend to get like stuck on numbers as well, don't I? I'll write a number down, and then that's what I gun for. Yeah. Whereas I know that I shouldn't do it, and it should just be a case of make every single rep the same.
Yeah.
I know that this last block, there was like leading up to that competition, I said to you, didn't I was absolutely panicking. Like I was missing all my 75 snatches, I was missing everything, and I knew that on the day I wanted 80 plus. And I can't remember what I started thinking about. I was singing my song and I was setting up, like I even did my setup in my head, like left hand, right hand, wiggle my foot, go, sing my song and go.
Yeah.
And giving me one thing to think about, I think it was like drive my knees out.
Yeah.
Just that, drive my knees out, like a lot goes through my head, as you can probably tell. I snatched 81, didn't I?
Yes.
So that was a win-win.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it does, like I say, the importance of establishing some sort of routine within your training around that is really, really important. Really.
I think I've made 3 out of 3 snatches in 3 years? Probably.
Yeah.
I always miss my last one.
But then that's the point: is you've got to play the game, then you've got to attack the game, and then you've got the kind of the bank. So that's not a completely bad thing. In terms of then the idea of managing the lead up to the games in particular, because you found out that you were selected, which was amazing. We had a number of athletes from North Wales that were going, 3 technically from NW1 as well, which was amazing. And what was the kind of the training environment like that at that time? What was good and what was bad, like it, particularly in the context of being in North Wales?
I was coming home a lot from uni, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I think they even gave me a month off.
Yeah, no, they did, yeah.
It was, I would go so far as saying that was probably the best training environment I've ever trained in. Obviously, bar being in Australia, but we just sort of managed to make it a team environment, didn't we? It wasn't like, oh, Holly's coming in at this time, Beth's coming in at that time, Ben's coming in at this time. It was like, right, training is 5 o'clock, we're all going to be there, we all make it. And that was that. And it's just nice to have people of the same sport who understand how hard any sport is, but specifically when you're in a sport, how to sort of hype you up.
So one of the things I would be, well, particularly because these guys will know about it. So the kind of the conditioning periods that I would put you through, the like 2-week conditioning periods, hence the face, that I would put you through. I've replicated a lot of those workouts with some of the guys here, the 10 to 1s and all of those kind of things. Yeah, exactly. Hell week. So, what's your recollection of those? For those that don't know, like we've done, particularly, I think we did it before the last cycle, maybe the last 12-week cycle. We did a week or 2 weeks, and we basically involves a load of conditioning. And I am adamant that it is it's a fantastic technique development tool. They are brutal, or sometimes unnecessarily, but at the same time, particularly, I remember using those as point of references in major competitions to be like, when you're blowing out of your backside, having clean and jerked, whatever, 100% of your max, and you've got 2 minutes and you've got to go again. Like, that's really cardiovascularly taxing. And so you have to be fit to do weightlifting.
That's what I remember. There was one comp, was it like the Celtics in Edinburgh? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And it was just madness. I'd only just finished my last snatch, and it was like, right, you've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. There was no rest, was there?
No.
I was like red in the face. My first clean jerk, I'm red because I just warmed up like every minute on the minute clean jerk.
And it's that kind of, but then as well as that, what it becomes is that kind of point of reference, is in the sense of like, no one else has done this work, no one else has kind of put the kind of the graft in, and it can instill a kind of real good mentality. Like, that's my thinking behind it, but at the same time, I don't have to do it. I've done it.
I also remember though that there was 1 year, there was 1 year in terms of we were carrying it over, that we didn't do any conditioning, and I got so injured. Like, I had injury after injury after injury, and it was only until we started doing the conditioning again that they started to even out, and then we got back to normal. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, it was my wrist, then it was my elbow. Oh no, it was my shoulder. I impinged my shoulder, and it was just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, not just like mentally in terms of I've done the work in training, I can do it on the platform, like physically as well. Yes, you're cardiovascular, but physically in terms of like imbalances in your muscles.
Yeah.
I do think it's important, just putting a little bit.
No, absolutely. Do you do any of it anymore?
I turn my accessories into it.
Okay, cool. Good.
Reluctantly, but I do it.
And so this was, and then we had the 12 weeks pre-games, which like you say, was fantastic. It was a great kind of team environment. Everyone kind of had their own individual programs, but still kind of trained at the same time. And obviously I was fortunate enough to be a part of that and to kind of watch over you all. Now, in terms of as well, just to kind of apply some context, Holly was on the way up. So we kind of didn't realize because there was another girl at the time who I coached, who was also in with a shout for the Commonwealth Games, and she basically got injured and as a result didn't make the grade, thus meaning Holly was the only one that made the standard. And so we hadn't really accounted for this, and so we're kind of on the way up in terms of her body weight.
Yeah. I think the last qualification comp, wasn't it? And we were like, well, may as well start going up now. So I was pretty much there, wasn't I?
Yeah. And so how did you find the notion of dieting then?
This was the first time that I'd ever had to cut, wasn't it? Like, I don't think a kilo cut is a cut. Like, it's not.
No.
You can do that over a week, can't you, if you just cut your calories down a little bit. But I was, what was I? Was I about 68 or was I like 69?
68.
68, and then all of a sudden, like, you've got to be 63. I was like, what? I genuinely felt like it was a bit of a kick in the teeth. Quickly got over that.
Yes.
But sort of came to the realisation that, right, this needs to be done as carefully as we can do it. Like, it was over Christmas, it was over my birthday, New Year's, it was literally everything, wasn't it? The one time of the year that you wouldn't want to be cutting holes there weighing a Christmas dinner out. I think
there's a lot of kind of modelling that can go off, and this sounds ridiculous because I know that I wrote the diet for it, so it sounds like my blowing hot air at my own arse here. But there's a lot of modelling that can go off it, because it shows that when you are 100% compliant in the way that you were, we managed to calculate your weight loss like bang on money.
I think it was like, was it like a week before? No, I think it was before we flew out, wasn't it?
So we aim to make weight, and this is another kind of for weightlifters that kind of listen to this and have to make weight. I think it's a fantastic casing example of how a diet could be managed. And so the way we kind of took it was a point of view of you take the cycle and use the training cycle to your advantage. And then as well as that, this is the biggest experience of your life. You do not want to be compromising that just experience with having to diet. Basically, you want to go to Australia and be able to enjoy it. But then that goes for me for any weightlifting competition. And so in terms of the kind of the management of the diet, we used the beginning of the cycle, which, knowing me, I can't remember the exact details, but would have been a lot of complexes. No, it was complexes at the beginning of the cycle. And obviously there, within the training complexes, you have lesser intensity. So your lifting intensity is about 70%. And you have higher volume. You are putting together pulls and snatches and hang snatches and overhead squats all into one movement. And thus your energy expenditure in terms of calorie burn, if you like, is going to be higher. The impact, because the intensity is lower, is going to be less neurally demanding. And so as a result, we were kind of a slightly more aggressive in that calorie deficit, aim to abide by a calorie deficit during that phase. And then from there, we were in a position where I remember, like, particularly in the weeks before the games or any competition, like it's normal to do things like Big Fridays and Super Saturdays or whatever, where you have these you're going to maximal lifts basically.
Yeah.
And within that, it's a case of you're compromising the most neurally stimulating part of the most demanding part of the training program. Also, the time at the training program where you want to peak, you're compromising that by being in a calorie deficit. But that's not the culture of weightlifting. And so, but I would urge people to have a greater consideration and periodize their nutrition so that they can kind of then eat into the competition in the same way that you do.
I think the lowest we took it was like 1,750.
Yeah.
I think that was the lowest we went to. Well, that's the lowest I remember anyway.
I think there was elements where it was slightly lower, but then at the same time, because we were able to capitalize on these things and periodize it in a way that was efficient, it was it kind of provides that like I say, it's not as, because you're not draining yourself through training as much in the beginning of a cycle, you're just setting the foundation. It allows you to then like I say, you're not as taxed, you're not taxing your central nervous system as much. In that sense, is that kind of what you?
Yeah, I just remember I was not stressed out about it. I think there was one time, wasn't there, where I was worried about retaining water weight from the flight.
Yeah,
that's what I was worried about, and that was purely because every other lifter was like, "You're going to gain weight after the flight." So that then set me off because I'd never weighed myself, having been on a long haul flight like that. I don't even think I've been on a long haul flight. So that stressed me out. But in terms of my own weight loss, like, I was fine. I remember the week before I lifted, bang on, I think I was like 62.2. And then from there we were like, okay, we're a little bit low. And then we went back up. But it was all the other lifters that were like, some of them did it so stupidly, and I just remember texting Carl, like, I can't handle this, this is doing my head in, because they were all just stressing about making weight and I'd already made it.
How's your weight management at the moment?
It's fine. I'm 71. I was 71.2 this morning. I was 71.4 yesterday and the day before.
Why? So what? Because one of the things that is testament to kind of your rise is your ability to be consistent, in the sense that obviously when, like I say, if you have somewhat an understanding of particularly that period before the Commonwealth Games, we were able to, because I knew you well, I knew what your lifestyle was like, I was able to quite accurately calculate your energy expenditure, and so could calculate the deficit. But then your ability to just adhere was phenomenal. Your ability just to kind of show up at the gym over and over and over again, even when the day before or the last training session, or you're not feeling too great. There's consistency is one of the most impressive traits that you have. Why? Where does that come from? And like, what environment has kind of facilitated that?
I'd say my mum and dad. As cliche as it sounds, like they're both RAF background, so
Okay.
I'm gonna go with that. But I do think that part of it's I don't like being seen as not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Like that literally covers everything. No, from my work, I would hate for any of my clients to be like, she's not trying hard enough, or she's not giving us this, or she's not giving us that. I'd hate that. So that comes the same with my lifting. I would hate for anybody to turn around and be like, nah, she's not in it because she doesn't turn up to training. She doesn't do what I tell her to do. She doesn't do this. She doesn't do that. And then obviously part of it's, what's the point in going to a competition if I've not put everything into it? I don't want to let myself down.
That was going to be my next question. So that's all very well, but where do you come into this?
Yeah, and then on the flip side is I've got my own goals. Like, I want to go to the next Commonwealth Games. Like, that's a home games. If I get to that and everybody can come, that would be insane. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and all I can do is try my absolute hardest to get there. Like, those days right now, I might appear on my social media that I'm loving training, but I'm dragging my feet getting there, and it's only downstairs.
Yeah, especially.
But I know that when I'm in there, if I don't try to make those lifts and put all my effort into it, then what's the point? I can't expect it to be handed to me on a plate, because it won't happen.
So you really kind of, I suppose, personally bounded by obviously the prospect of another Commonwealth Games, which I can completely relate to, not in the sense of going to a Commonwealth Games, but having that kind of like end of the road. What do you think that'll look like in terms of, I suppose, not necessarily even motivation to compete, but just motivation just to train, once that's kind of been and gone? Once you've lost that kind of, do you know? Have you thought about that?
How old will I be? I'll be 26 by then. So, I don't know. Like, I could easily turn around and be like, we could be looking to get married, having kids, but
it's a scary thought.
Scary. I honestly don't know, but I do also feel that there's like a lot of pressure. I feel a lot of pressure from not social media, so to speak, but because I've been to one Commonwealth Games, I don't want to get lost in a sort of group of past lifters, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to be a current lifter.
Yeah, one-hit wonders type thing.
Yeah, I don't want to be that. And in my head, and I know that I say this an awful lot, even if I win a medal and somebody's bombed out, I see that as default. Like, I got there by default. I see that about the Commonwealth Games in Australia, kind of. So, in terms of the next one, I want to get there on my own, if that makes sense. You'll know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, definitely. So just to provide some context, as I said, the other girl that I coached, that was Holly's kind of one of Holly's competitors, basically it got injured, and as a result, bombed out on the kind of her last chance to kind of hit the qualification standard, which was devastating, like to watch. Which was devastating to watch. And so as a result, the reality of the situation was that if this other lifter had been healthy, then Holly maybe might not have gone. And if because the other girl would have made a slightly higher standard. And so she's just kind of referring to the fact that she kind of wants to go on as the number one ranked lifter, not the number two. Not the number two that kind of goes as a result of injury to another one, which I can kind of get. So there is certainly a kind of, you feel as if there's an element of point to prove, or
yeah.
Interesting. No, it's obviously really, like, I'm fascinated just to kind of hear you talk about it and get your take on it, because we've had conversations about it, yes, but to kind of hear you verbalize it and vocalize it like that. I mean, I would maybe not right now, because I'd be here because we've got like 10 minutes left, and the whole 10 minutes would be me challenging that. I would definitely challenge that, because I would also echo that you do a lot of things right, and you put yourself in the positions that you have, and the process of going from PVC pipe to competitive weightlifter, but then from that process of going from under 23 champion or whatever it was, or universities champion, to then Commonwealth Games.
No, champion.
Yeah, no, under 23 champion or universities champion. I said I wasn't sure.
Wasn't university champion. Well, I was, but
yeah, under 23 champion to then Commonwealth Games. There was like say, there's a lot of things you did right, that you should certainly be kind of patting yourself on the back for. And this notion of and this is something for everyone, this notion of just try harder doesn't always wash, and it's something that, like I say, I think you're doing really well off, but there still has to be this acknowledgement of kind of, okay, this is what I've done, this is what these are the traits that have served me really, really well, and use them to your advantage, particularly going forward. Now, in terms of let's just delve into the Commonwealth Games itself. What was that like? Let's talk about the athlete village and all that kind of stuff.
I just wish I'd been able to take everyone. Right. I can't even. Just, you're in a bubble. It's weird. You're so in a bubble. Like, I don't think we knew really what was going on outside. I mean, the cricket, there's something going on about cricket being fixed at that time, but it was like we were right in the corner. So I think the Welsh team had put us there so that when everybody was still competing, we were in a quiet corner, because you had to walk past everybody's block, but everybody lived in a block. So the Welsh had a block. We were right next to the New Zealand block, so we met a lot of Kiwis. They were proper cool people.
Was it social?
Say again?
Was it social, or did everyone keep themselves to themselves?
It was me and Taylor Howe that sort of spent the weeks together with Jordan Sackett. We were sort of like the little trio, I'd say. Got really close to them, actually, and then we would all go to training together, and then we'd come home, we'd eat, we'd either train again, because there was a gym on site as well, but that was more like a bodybuilding.
No gym time.
Yeah. And then eat dinner together. Like, we tried to make dinner a team thing, which more often than not it was. But like, there were a lot of sort of guidelines, shall we say. Like, they didn't want us out in the sun too much. Obviously, it dehydrate us before we lifted. They wanted all of us at every single competition. So, like, physio, I was having physio every day. It was like the dream.
And
but
then
it was until sort of after we competed that we started to mingle with the other teams, really.
the competition itself gave us a bit of a worry. Because like I say, it's probably one of the most successful training blocks that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, I still look back at videos, like a video popped up. So it was 2 years ago, like now that I was there. So videos keep popping up, and I power cleaned 90. I would have been weighing about 62 points a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't even do that now. I'm like, why can't I do that now?
But then the competition day itself, what do you recall of that?
I remember being very relaxed, probably too relaxed. So I don't know whether I was so sort of, you can get through this and you can do really well by staying calm, that I almost switched off.
Yeah.
Which is the first time it's ever happened. I had family, I had my cousins in the audience, I had obviously all my teammates, I knew people were watching at home. I remember weighing in, and I can't remember what I weighed. It was quite low though. I remember it being quite low. And then warming up was fine. It was really surreal having like massive cameras shoved in your face. So like, I think that threw me off a little. It didn't throw me off, but I was like, whoa, yeah. Why are you standing there? Move. Yeah. So that was a bit weird. And maybe I didn't comprehend how big the audience was going to be. Like, I'd stood on the platform and I'd seen how big the stadium was, but when it's filled with people, like, that's totally different. Like, I don't remember walking out and doing the whole presentation thing. I don't remember that.
Interesting.
Couldn't tell you what I was looking at. Like, usually I can tell you straight away I'm looking at the top of the middle judge's head, but I can't remember. And then warm-up, can't remember how the warm-up went. I do remember that the warm-up for my snatches was not as thorough as we would have done. So Cal obviously wasn't there, which made me sad. So I had two coaches that had never really coached me before. So even your warm-up's different, isn't it, with a different coach? Like, it's just totally different when you haven't got your coach there. It's just weird. So I know that my snatch was nowhere near as routine as it usually is. And then I don't remember going out for my first snatch. I know I missed it.
What happened on your second snatch?
My second snatch, did I lose it in front? I think I lost the first one behind me and the second one in front of me, didn't I?
Yep.
And then, do you know what? Until I went back into the back room and Cal gave me a right talking to. Like, he was swearing. He was like, wake the fuck up. Like, you need to pull your finger out right now. Properly, I've never been shouted at. Like, you shout at me, but I know it's from a loving place. Yeah. He was shouting at me like, do what you come here for, type thing. Yeah. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, I've got one lift left. Like, it hadn't even occurred to me. That's how sort of switched off I was. So it was really weird. Abby and Bri just walking past the window. So that was really bizarre. And then, like, I wanted to hit 77. I remember wanting to hit 77, and I missed my opener twice. And then clean and jerks, I remember coming in and being like, right, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm good at. Like, let's get this now. I missed I remember my opener was meant to be 93, wasn't it? Yeah. And I had to drop it then because I was a bit nervous about doing the same thing. So I dropped it to 90. Opened at 90, they called me for press out on the 93 and then made it on third attempt. and then coming off and just crying. Like, I cried my eyes out on live TV. Like, that's embarrassing.
Exactly what you want. I think that's one of the things that you can definitely take from those weights, though, particularly for those that kind of do from a weightlifting competition. I think people kind of go in with the expectation that the competition is this big kind of, in some cases, PB event. And the reality is, if you're hitting 97, 96% and above of your 1 rep max, you can call that quite a successful day. This kind of fairy tale so there will be days where you will hit PBs. You will hit, like I say,
few and far between.
But the actual reality is the PBs are a lot more likely to happen in the training room. And if, like say, people almost feel disappointed, I can snatch 65, 60 or 60, say, and I only snatch 57 in the competition. Well, that's still 90 whatever percent, 98% of your 1 rep max. Like, that is a successful day, because doing it on a platform. And then there's also something to be said, particularly in your kind of context of weightlift, your performance, of kind of building the continuity of that, being able to go from competition to competition to competition and hitting similar numbers, and having this kind of more really systematic approach is really, really something that's underrated. And you have to almost, one of the things that we used to say is you have to earn the right to go heavy, and you can only do that by showing continuity at those higher percentages.
I don't know. I'm one of the weird ones that will snatch more in comp than I will in training. I don't think I've snatched heavier than 77 in training.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Just can't get my head around it in the gym. But that's going to have to change.
Yeah.
But yeah, clean and jerk wise, it's totally different ball game, isn't it? Well, I think it is. The whole thing, competition day is not. It's what you try and tell like the beginners and the learners. The sooner you can get into a competition, the better, because you quickly realise that the judges, everybody there that's watching you, they're not there to laugh at you when you fail. They're there to help you get the lifts, which I do feel like a lot of lifters sort of get very hung up on. And on any given competition day, I don't think I worry about all the other people that are there. I don't worry about the competition. I worry about
you.
Yeah.
Basically, so on that kind of note, if there was someone who, I mean, I can think of some people even at the gym who might be thinking about kind of, who do weightlifting, might be thinking about competing in, like, whether they do CrossFit and just competing in a local regional one, or they're part of the P10 weightlifting club and they want to, and a kind of dabbling with the idea of doing something more than just training. What would your kind of key things to be? Like, where would you focus on, and what would your kind of key points of encouragement be in terms of
like doing a competition?
Well, yeah, and training and competition. I suppose the competition, it sounds like it would just be just do one.
Yeah, like I can't emphasize anymore how much of a little weed I was, and how self-conscious and nervous I was. Like, I would overanalyze everything. I remember when I first started learning, I thought Cal hated me. Like, I genuinely remember turning around to Liv and being like, he hates me. He actually hates me.
Can I just say though, that was the kind of the demeanor that was, particularly within the weightlifting club, that was the way that the weightlifting club operated, though. It was a dictatorship, was it not? And so there was certain element to that was on purpose, but obviously I'm a kind, loving guy at heart.
We know that now. I was the girl that just would not put her hand up in class. I wouldn't nominate myself to do anything. So I empathise, but I do think that if I've done it, you can do it. Like, I do. And in terms of training, like, it gives you something to focus on, even if it's just, right, let's have an in-house competition, or let's get 5 of the lifters together and just have a friendly competition, just keep loading the bar and see who gets the heaviest. Like, anything like that.
Yeah, it's like exposure to heavy weights is good in that kind of competitive environment. One of the things I remember, whilst you were at uni, we got all of the lifters in, and we had, so in the club, all in all, just as a context, there was about 75 lifters from 6 years old up to kind of academy. We had an academy structure, which was about 12 to 15 athletes, are all kind of international, age 14 and above. And we got the academy structures together, everyone put a fiver in, and whoever got the closest to their best percentage. So if their PB was, say, 70 and they got a 72, then they got 100 and whatever percent of their max. Whoever got the highest percentage basically took all this money home. I'm
invited to this.
What's that? Because you were in uni. And
money.
Yeah, and Ben Foggo, who at the time was about 15 years old, and this kid, he put up a clean and jerk of about 80 at about 50 something kilo body weight, and he won. And it was like he won the lottery. Like, this 15-year-old kid was walking out the gym with about 60 quid. But yeah, the exposure to that is definitely good. What about in terms of some of the, just to kind of end, in terms of some of the more, what's your kind of key things that, say there's some people here who are just starting lifting, or within the first year of their lifting, where should they be focusing on in terms of what are the key things that you look at from a technical point of view that they should be getting right?
What specifically technique?
Well, yeah. Well, what would you be doing? Like I say, first year, what would you do with your athletes?
God, there's so much. A lot of things that I do with the lifters is just getting competent and comfortable under the bar. Like, a lot of people seem to struggle with catching a snatch low. Like, they'll catch it high and then they'll ride it in. And I've started to notice that with a lot of the junior lifters. So trying to address that, because the heavier you get, you've got to get the bar to the bottom. You've got to get to the bottom to catch the bar.
Yeah.
Bar path, like, God, if you look at some of my lifts from the very beginning, like, I'm jumping like a rabbit.
Yes.
So pulls, it's just like triple extension, elbows high, catching the bottom, and then getting that leg drive. Like, a lot of people that I see jerking, they just don't get that leg drive, or they connect with the bar at the wrong place. God, there's loads. I don't even know. I don't know. It's like, it varies from person to person, doesn't it? But
it does, of course. I think based off of like your story, and particularly knowing your technique, the idea around building that confidence of getting into the bottom, and also becoming comfortable with failing getting into the bottom, is something that's trying almost just teach someone early doors. And then, as well as that, one of the things that, despite you having the ability, yes, you were like, it was like a snatch broad jump at times, but what you did do is find that hit very, very well. And so you would finish your extension. And I think those two things is something that you could definitely transfer forward. Before we finish, are there any questions that anyone has for Holly? Or we can wrap it up. And just whilst we give people opportunity to ask those questions, where can they find you on social media? And you do all online programming and all this kind of stuff.
I'll have to find what my name is. Sorry, bear with.
I thought you were an Insta.
I don't remember my name. Coach _ is
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Yeah. Holly Knowles.
coach_Holly Knowles. So if you are on the social media, you can go follow her there and watch her journey.
My Instagram's better than my
Instagram.
Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram. And then obviously, I'm sure she'd be happy for you to reach out in any way, shape, or form. Thank you so much for
More than
chatting to
welcome.
me. I appreciate it, and it's
nice to talk weightlifting.
yes, it is. It is. Well, I'll speak to you tomorrow because I will give you some nutrition spiel tomorrow. And then, other than that, thank you to all you guys that have kind of stayed with us the whole time. And if for those that are kind of tuning in regularly, I will be back on Monday where we are going to go deep. We're going to go really, really deep. So brace yourself for that.